All right, welcome to Hangouts on Air, or rather the Dependency API Postmortem for an outage on the supermarket the other day. We're going to be talking through the postmortem like we've done in the past. So let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. So here at OpsCode, or rather Chef, we do postmortems for anything that is user affecting or user facing rather, whether that be internal or external. And these are blameless postmortems. So let me start the way we start all of our internal postmortems and these external postmortems. We start every postmortem stating the following. This is a blameless postmortem. We will not focus on the past events as they pertain to could have, should have. All follow-up action items will be assigned to a team/individual before the end of the meeting. If the item is not going to be top priority leaving the meeting, don't make it a follow-up item. All right, let me make sure that, there we go. Cool. So I was the incident leader. The incident description is neither the env or the .env or .env .production were properly set, causing supermarket to try and talk to a Redis instance on localhost, causing users to get an error when trying to use the /universe endpoint. Does that pretty well summarize the issue for most people?
Pretty much. It kind of includes the root cause as well.
Okay. I guess really the issue doesn't matter, the first part.
It's basically the universe endpoint was down.
Cool. All right, so let's go through the timeline. All times are UTC. So back on the 7th, I released the 2.7.1 version of the Supermarket Cookbook and updated prod and staging to use it. On the so starting on the yesterday at 15:04, I began a deploy of Supermarket. At 15:10, Mark Harrison at MH, for the purpose of this document, receives pages that 500s are elevated and that Sidekick is unreachable. At 15:12, the deploy is completed. At 15:13, myself and Mark Harrison discuss that the alerts during the deploy are normal and that the fix to Unicorn is being worked on. At 15:25, Sander Van Harmelin makes mention that the universe is returning an error. At 15:26, we started an incident. At 15:30, Jeremiah Snap updates status.getshop.com to reflect that we are working on an issue. At 15:30, in the incident room, we begin discussion that there is actually already an open issue for something that would more or less be related to this. We started that discussion that this pull request was being tested. At 15:38, we discussed the rolling back the cookbook to a previous version. At 15:42, we determined that the way forward is to manually update the .n.production symlink. At 15:43, MH begins deploying the fix. At 15:48, we had confirmed that this fix was valid on one node. By 15:53, Seth Vargo and Jeremiah Snap discuss using Dependency API instead of Berkshelf API to disambiguate what we're talking about. This is really to kind of, number one, there are other pieces of software that are talking about using that Dependency API. Number two, there's no reason to tie this to the Berkshelf folks and them to get issues about things that aren't their problems. So we updated the status to fix that. At 15:55, Mark confirms that the fix is complete. At 15:57, Seth Vargo verifies that the fix is complete, and at 15:57, Jeremiah Snap updates status.getchef.com to note that the incident is resolved. Are there any problems with that timeline?
Not from my point of view.
And I don't, just looking at the group that's here with us, I don't think anybody else was in the incident chat room with us, so I don't think anybody else would have been able to dispute that per se. So let's talk about contributing factors and moving forward. The 2.7.1 version of the supermarket cookbook broke the symlinking of .env. This wasn't initially discovered when the update was done for two reasons. The first reason being staging uses a Redis instance in the default location that the .env points at. Prod does not. It uses it on a separate instance. The symlink code only gets executed upon a deploy revision, and this was the first time that a new revision was deployed to prod since the cookbook was updated. Does that, Mark? I think you were the most involved in this. Does that seem like the root-ish cause of this problem?
Yeah, that makes sense. Because it was basically the new version of the cookbook changed how I was symlinked, and we didn't have the empty link for symlink that we needed.
Is it worth mentioning as part of this postmortem that what happened was effectively we were calling, and now I don't remember the method name. I can go look it up in a second here if it's important. But we were calling a method twice, which ended up replacing, versus what we needed to do was pass an array of hashes to that method.
It's a symlink before migrate, I believe.
Yeah, perfect. So the symlink before migrate, we were calling that method twice instead of passing it an array of hashes. Is that useful to make mention here, or is that that's just an implementation detail that you can see in the
only thing I can think of, like how it would be useful, is like running integration tests would have caught this, I guess. I don't really know if that's a factor.
Yeah. Well, I think I broke the test so that originally I don't think that this was doing a symlink. I think it was just copying was the problem. So, okay, well, let's talk stabilization steps. Is everybody good with those contributing factors, that's kind of the root cause of this problem? Nods? Okay, cool. Continuing on. The stabilization step was that we manually added a symlink from srv/supermarket/current.env.production to /srv/supermarket/shared.env.production. I don't think there's any, unless we're concerned about relative versus fully qualified paths, I don't think that there's anything to actually be discussed there, except that's how we fixed it.
Yeah, I leave that as is.
So the impact was users were unable to resolve dependencies using Berkshelf for about 50 minutes. All right, so corrective actions. I've broken these into two parts. Corrective actions that have already been taken or are in process. So correct the issue with the symlinking. This was released as part of version 2.7.2 of the Supermarket Cookbook. Additionally, we added some extra tests to make sure that we're actually testing the right things to catch this in the future. And then we've got an active card on the supermarket board to make deploys not noisy, because I think part of why we were behind about 10 minutes on getting this actually worked on was a result of we're used to this deploy being noisy and ignored alerts that were actually actionable. So let's talk a little bit about proposed actions, things that may or may not end up in the corrective actions state. This is kind of almost more meta than anything, and I don't know how it needs to change into an actual action. So during normal operation, Supermarket actually uses the dependency API for its own cookbooks. So for me to go update to version 2.7.2 of the cookbook, I run Burke's upgrade cookbooks. I'm sorry, Burke's upgrade Supermarket. It pulls down. Is it upgrade or update? Those, yeah.
Update.
Update. Thank you. I run Burke's update Supermarket. It pulls down the latest version of the Supermarket that was published to the Supermarket, and we then push that up to, we do a Burke's upload, which uploads that to hosted Enterprise Chef, and then we run Chef Client. So,
I think you guys have a circular dependency problem.
yes, I think for normal operation, that's not normally a concern. I think it works just fine under normal operating circumstances. I think what we need to make sure we have is a playbook in place to do this manually from the GitHub repo. Does that seem reasonable, Mark?
That makes sense to me, because you can do pretty much all of that directly with knife commands if you don't care about manual, if you don't care about automatically resolving dependencies.
Well, and we've intentionally, like the Supermarket cookbook itself has no dependencies at this point intentionally. The only reason we use the Burke's workflow is it's what we use elsewhere, and it makes life simpler. So yeah, Mark, can I assign creating a playbook?
Yeah, you can assign that to the ops team.
You guys should probably create a release that contains the source of the application and all the cookbooks used to build that application. I just linked to what the releases look like for the Brookshelf API server. Those should be handed off to the operations team, uploaded into the Chef server, and then applied to the environment that the Supermarket's in. If you do that, then you won't run into the circular dependency issue. You also won't be talking to the API server when you're trying to upgrade it as well. That's an approach that you could use, and the approach that I use to deploy all my software.
Okay.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's something to definitely consider. But I think that falls outside of it's not a right away thing. So I'll let Mark take that back to the ops team. So Chef ops. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and move this up to a corrective action. Oh, and it probably should not end in a question mark, huh? External cache via CDN of /universe. So one of the things that would have been nice is if the /universe was cached, and if origin was down, it still responded. So Mark, does this make sense as something we should do, or what's your thoughts on this?
If we were to do that, we'd have to cache, or at least put a cache server in front of all of Supermarket. Now,
Yeah.
we wouldn't have to actually cache things that will get updated regularly, but that's something we can probably discuss, but not necessarily as a corrective action.
Okay, so I think what I'm hearing is this should go on on the Supermarket planning board as something we do with Supermarket, but should not be a corrective action because it's larger in scope.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and take that off. One of the things that dawned on me is the way I was looking at the code that actually renders /universe. Does it make sense to, if Redis is unavailable or really the Rails cache is inaccessible, to fall through and just render it live? I mean, I know that would add an ass load of load to the servers, but it would at least get us to a point where end users weren't impacted outside of some additional latency.
I suspect that the increased load would lead to a huge impact on end users. Like
Okay.
you would end up with getting 500 errors, and the latency would be huge. I'm thinking about when we first launched, and we had issues before everything was cached properly, and it just grew and grew.
Okay. I can accept that. So maybe the better answer here is
I mean, if we have the CDN, then that won't be a concern as much. And I think we can just make sure that the caches are there.
agreed. So let's do this. Let's throw an exception if Redis is inaccessible because, like, as far as I'm concerned, we should have gotten Sentry alerts about this because the software should have thrown an exception. And does anyone disagree with that? I'm kind of looking at the okay. So I'm going to assign this to full stack, and we'll get a card. In fact, actually, Brett, can you create a card on the board and paste a link in to chat so that I can add it to the postmortem?
Yep, I'll do that.
Thank you very much. And then finally, this is just kind of a pet peeve. The status said everything was okay, even though it said that Redis was down. It should return a not okay state. So let me do this. If I... Sure. It'll take me just a second here, guys. Okay. So if I hit the screen share thing over here, so it says status okay, but it said Sidekick and Redis were unreachable. Or maybe just Redis was unreachable. Either way, status should not be okay if status is unreachable. Does that make sense? Does anyone disagree that that should get fixed? Okay.
Chris, I created a Trello card for that too, because I'm guessing that's
Yes.
a full stack thing to do. So they're both in chat, the links to those Trello cards.
Thank you very much. Cool. So we're going to... Is the first link the
The first link, so the first link that you see is throw an exception if Redis is not available, and then the second one is if the status should reflect the state of all the services.
Cool. Awesome. I love that it results in a card that we can link to inside the postmortem. All right. Well, I think that handles. Are there other corrective actions, other things we should be doing that immediately that change the way we handled this, the way that we responded to it? One of the things, and I guess for me, internally we're working to better expose these particular, what's the word I'm looking for here? So expose these alerts and stuff to more than just the ops team at the moment, and actually more teams in general. So my question is, are there other aspects of that we should be doing? Any thoughts, Mark? Just kind of, since you're our representative from the ops team.
I mean, right now I think it's just the ops team that receives the alerts. I don't have too much of a problem with receiving them. We certainly don't at the moment. The ops team is happy to own supermarkets, so to speak. But certainly, we're not necessarily able to fix all issues, and being able to escalate, or at least have the person receiving the alert be the person who's got the most ability to fix the issue is probably a good way forward. But I'm not sure that would really fall under corrective action at this point. It's something we can maybe discuss outside of the Postmortem meeting.
Okay. Oh, and I think to add to it, I think that as we bring staff internal to Chef to work on Supermarket, that'll help kind of the organizational type things. So.
Oh yeah, we should definitely put full staff on call. Everyone shaking their heads.
Well, cool. Is there anything else for the greater good of the team? Any concerns, questions? I do want to say thank you to everybody that's responded to these things. I love that we're able to be open about when we've had issues. My hope is this helps to encourage openness, not just with Chef, but with the community as a whole. So. Cool. All right, then I'm going to end this. I expect to see an actual write-up in on the blog before the end of the week, summarizing this data, and we'll go from there. Thank you so much for all your time, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.